Good day, sisters and brothers, One Nation Tribal Alliance, and community brothers and sisters from near and far. Today, I said to y'all that I was going to bring other natives to come talk to you about how they are on reservation, how they live on a reservation. So today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Eve Howard, and so, Eve, welcome to One Nation Tribal Alliance. I just want to welcome you, and I'm excited. Just the things we talked about earlier got me excited. So, I'll be ready to go whenever you are, Eve. So,
Miigwech, thank you for having me on. I know we talked about some of the things yesterday and then kind of went over a little things today, but I grew up, I was born in Minneapolis. I was in urban. I started out urban. And my mother moved us up, the girls and like me and my sister, to a reservation, her reservation. And she's a Ojibwe and she comes from the Red Lake. So I lived on the Red Lake Reservation for till I was about 5, and then we moved off, and we were trying to get to White Earth, which where they both grew up in Ponsford in Minnesota, and we ended up living on Leech Lake Reservation for about 13 years. We had a house there. Um, it was a very remote area, like about 13 miles to the nearest town, or well, 8 miles south to Walker, or 13 miles up to Cass Lake. So we lived in a really remote area, a lot of woodsy area. And I remember when I got older, I was like, I'm going to go and live in the city. I'm going to go and I'm going to be able to have hot food when I want it, instead of waiting, and getting something that was cold because, we travel many miles. You were talking about Walmart. Well, we lived probably about an hour from the nearest Walmart. And that was in, I don't even want to talk about that town because we don't want any business to it. But anyway, so we kind of grew up just, I think in Red Lake, we had like a 2-bedroom house and there was no running water. So we had to bring water. There was a stove in there. My mom would cook and we all had our beds in the other room. And we didn't have like living room. We didn't have a bathroom. So we had like a little pail, like if it was super cold out or if it was storming or anything like that. Because if I had to go to the bathroom, we had to walk all the way behind the house, probably about 40 feet to the outhouse
hmm.
and use that. So, we grew up really poor. And I never thought anything of it. I thought that was, normal. I thought everybody lived like this. I didn't I didn't know. It wasn't until we got a little house on the other side of town. My parents had bought a trailer somewhere Black Duck area, and we moved it back on the res. We lived on Little Rock for a while, and then we ended up getting a house somewhere else. So we moved there. My parents were married when I was 5, so I wasn't, I mean, this was all natural and normal to me. I didn't know that things were done differently elsewhere. And yeah, I grew up there till I think it was about ninth grade. And then my mother wanted to move and they had joint custody. So it was basically, I was old enough to decide on where I wanted to go. And she wanted to go to Colorado. So we packed up the 1978 Ford LTD all the way to the top and we drove all the way there. And it was, but I remember that, being a kid, we'd always go, my parents would did concessions for the powwow. So we'd go and we'd get all the food and all the chips and everything and the ingredients my mom would make, fry bread. And we'd go to concession, we'd go to powwows and stuff. And it was almost like a little family, like a little traveling family. And you got to know some of the dancers. You got to know, of course, all the people that were in concession because they're all traveling the same way you're going. Um, I think I remember the most distinctive one we went to, I think it was the Crow Fair and it was in Montana. And we pulled up there. My dad had bought this camper and everybody was on horses and everybody was in teepees. And here we are with a camper. It was funny though, I mean, I remember just just things like that. People having, friends of mine had a raccoon and he got lost at the last poem when I saw him again. And another one, they're like, we found him. Where was he? He was in the outhouse. He was in the latrines. So, I mean, it was very, growing up. I mean, we went to Canada too. I remember that going to Canada, my mom and dad. My mom, especially her family, was from Thunder Bay, Ontario, and her last name is Thunder. So they kind of came down from like the Wisconsin, and then eventually the Ojibwe ended up in Minnesota, and they lived in, they had kind of busted up the bands, into different bands for the Ojibwe Nation. There's Red Lake, Leech Lake, White Earth, Mille Lacs, Net Lake, and probably another one I'm forgetting. But yeah, White Earth, and I'm from White Earth. My dad's from White Earth. My mom is from Red Lake, but she ended up coming and living there because I think her father was Red Lake, her mother was from White Earth, and they lived there in White Earth. They grew up in Ponsford, which was an old town. Now they don't even call that anymore. They call it what is it called? I still say Ponsford, but they call it something else now. They kind of want to do away with like a lot of the, I guess people, Ponsford was pretty poor living back then, my parents and stuff. And eventually, my mom's mom ended up having TB and going away to Agua Ching, which was a nursing home in Walker area, where she eventually passed away from the disease. And my father lost his mother at the age of 7 she was just walking. She got between two cars and two cars hit her and she was 7 months pregnant. So she lost her baby and her life. And so the kids were shipped off to boarding school at a very young age. And my mother says she remembers, like, she understood her aunts would talk Ojibwe to her. She understand it, but when you go to the boarding schools, they want to take that. They want to take that from you, and so you're only to speak in English. You aren't spoken. You don't speak until spoken to, and all these rules that growing up and you were raised by nuns and priests there, and we have a lot of brothers and sisters who never made it back. And it's a terrible thing. I know I reached out to the Secretary of the Interior, was like Deborah Haskell? No, Haskins. But she was a Native American woman. She was working in the government. She was the Secretary of the Interior there. And I contacted her and I said, I I have this gift where I can help people move on to the next area and they're stuck there. I was like, would you allow me to go into some of these places and release, you know, so they could return to their families, return to source? And I never heard back from her. And, she must get like hundreds of emails a day, but, I thought that was important to me at the time to do. It was like somebody told me to do this. I get this. I get these. It's like someone tells me to do something, and I do it. Like a couple of years ago, they're like, "You have to go get a tent. You have to go get sleeping bags. You have to, And I was like, "Okay." And I went and I ordered everything and like ready meals and everything. I'm like, I have a bug out bag ready, and they're like, you might have to go back to root. And I was like, okay, I can do that. And that means going back to our roots, going back to like moving away from the cities and going back to nature, going back to mother, being close because we're needed. And that was like one of the things that I was told when I was a little child, that why I was here, that I was here to heal our people. I was here to heal this planet. It's a very sentient. All planets are sentient. Everything is sentient. If you just
Mhm.
understand that everything has life. I mean,
Yes.
I never thought much of, I mean, I knew that things were alive, but I mean, when I started to be able to communicate with, the plants, I have this plant right outside of my window, and in the summertime, he'll knock on the window when I'm doing podcasts, and I was like, what is that noise? I went out and there was this little bush out there and he's tapping on the window. I mean, they're very sentient. People were realizing, and you saw these TikToks where people were telling the trees, put your limb on my shoulder, and they would put it down and they're like, oh, this is so weird. No, it's not. It's the way things are.
No, it's not. Yeah, you know, I can understand and relate to what you're saying about, you know, the, if you raise your vibration, it's not weird. If you live
No.
in a higher vibration, it's not weird. But I saw that guy doing that on podcast saying that, watch this, and he said, put your hand on my shoulder and see that tree limb go down and just over
Hmm.
his shoulder. And everything does have a spirit. Everything. From the little ant to that's why we are taught or informed not to kill anything. And
Hmm.
when you pick medicine, you don't pull the roots and everything out. You just take
And
like
sneeze
leave at
it.
least 2 inches from the bottom and cut it off and tell the plant thank you and give
Hmm.
thanks to the plant and say the reason why I'm taking you is because of this. And when you pick herbal medicine, that's how you should do it. But if you must take the root, you go to the tip of the root and you can only get a foot to 18 inches depending on how long the root is. Only take like 20% of the root, not the whole thing, but just the 20%. And that way that plant is still alive and surviving. You don't go out there to kill it because it's got a spirit.
Hmm.
Everything has a spirit. Even these tables that we have, wood tables, it came from a tree. Tree had a spirit. So, yes, I understand what you mean about spiritual life.
Hmm.
So I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no, you're good. I was like, I think it was about 2000. I remember going out and someone had gave me medicine to help see things better. And I went out into the seen this tree and I walked up to it and I just leaned against it. I didn't hug it. I just leaned against it and I could almost feel like this heartbeat. And I was like, that's crazy. And I look up into the trees and I'm looking up at the leaves and I'm seeing almost like blood going through the veins of each leaf. But it's not, I mean, it's not our blood like ours, but it's their blood, which is, it's a different color. And it was like it was an eye opener for me because all the things that I was told when I was little because my parents do remember some of the things that they were told. I was brought up, learning some Ojibwe and remembering what the names were. And to me, that was English because I also spoke English, but I mean, my own language felt like English to me. But I mean, my father wanted, as living on the reservation, he also served in the military, and then he worked for Bureau of Indian Affairs for many years. After that, he ended up retiring from that. But it was, he wanted us to instill a lot of nature and stuff. We had some land that was in his name, but he used to go around and he used to go to a lot of reservations, a lot of tribes, and help them to put some of their land in trust, to help them build some of the casinos because the casinos was their prime money that they were making. And instead of relying on the government, because we know how that can be sometimes, you have to write grants for everything. Anyone who is in charge of the reservation, they write grants to the United States government. But there are some sovereign, they're starting to go sovereign. The one that my mother was in, the tribe she was from is a sovereign nation, and it's the only one in Minnesota, and I think there are only two like it in the world. But you can go to the casino, but you can't just go drive around and look at stuff and go on different reservations. Tribal police will come. What are you doing here? Who do you know? And they'll escort you right back to the casino and say, if you take that road, you'll just go right back to the highway. I mean, they don't want. There's obvious traffic from getting certain places with certain trucks and stuff, and that's understandable. But they don't. I'm not saying, you can't go and get land there and live there. That's tribal land. That's for the tribal people that are enrolled there. There's Even me being White Earth, even though I'm Ojibwe, I'm not enrolled there, so they would escort me off. So yeah, I'm a descendant. My mother is, and the weird thing, I was like talking to somebody about it. My mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, he played in the NFL, and I was like, no way. I looked it up. It's true. He played in 1929. I think it was when there was like a war going on. And everybody left, even some of the ball players left, and they formed an all Native American. Um, they formed an all Native American team, and it was called like the Orang Indians. And the Orang dogs, the owner of the team, he had those long dogs, the dogs with the long nose, and they got the long fur. And they invented the halftime show because they would bring the dogs out. The players would bring the dogs out and they would like have them do tricks and jump around you because they were trying to sell these dogs also. So that's where the halftime show originated from. But yeah, they played for about a year and there was all tribes. So there was like Apache tribes, there was Cheyenne, there was, it was all tribal. I have somewhere the list of the names of the men who played. And but my grandfather's name was Batiste Thunder, and he played. I think he was a linebacker or something. He had two positions, of course, but it's funny, there are so many things that people just don't understand. Like I met Billy Mills, and one of my biggest heroes was Jim Thorpe growing up because my father was like heavily into the Minnesota Vikings, so he was always telling me about Jim Thorpe thing stories. But we as indigenous people, we grow up with stories. They tell us things, and they make a story out of it. And I mean, some of the stories that I can talk about are like, where they actually Nanabuju created how they created Turtle Island, and it's because of a great deluge. It was water flooded all everywhere. There was no land, and they were just floating on wood, and it was like Nanabuju and a bunch of animals were with him. So it's an interesting story if you ever get a chance to like look that up. I think I posted it on my Facebook, but I know we were talking about connections, and I had done a show with a friend of ours, Robert Khalil from Typical
Yeah.
Skeptic. And one of the connections and that I did a show recently was connection to people and animals. And I have this, and you said you're like a super duper empath. And I was like, yes, I am. I can transfer myself into like some of the bodies of people that I love. And when they go through these things, I feel it. And it's especially when they die, it's horrible, to talk about because, you have to experience other people walk a mile in their moccasins. That's a really good thing to do, to understand each other and to realize that we're all one tribe. And that's one of the things that was told to me in like 2012, I do 2013. And it was like one tribe. What's that? I just hear things. People just like drop in and say one word and I'm like left with wondering what the heck are they talking about? Um, but when I lived on Mille Lacs, we're talking about that's a very small, tiny reservation. And I lived there. We lived by the was it the Red River or the Rum River? I think it was by the Rum River. But there was like so much going on there. You go outside at night and you can hear people talking by the river. But you get closer and they weren't talking, English. They're talking Ojibwe. And they would walk towards the house and you could hear the crunching of the snow, but you couldn't see anybody. So we guessed that they were, spirits, some warriors that would make camp there, to go out and hunt away from everyone else. But there's lots of things like that, on the reservation. I mean, we don't call them ghost stories. We just talk about them, and we don't really say too much to anyone else either. Um, but I think you were talking about that bear story yesterday.
Hmm.
And I had talked about a bear story. I got really emotional because I was like going back and almost feeling, that the bear got hit by a big SUV, and I like somehow connected with this bear, and I could feel it dying, and I was like screaming, and I don't even remember. Um, it was crazy, and that's when I realized that there was something, that there was like all these abilities and gifts that I had just kind of pushed away for many years, and didn't want to live on my reservation. And, even though my husband was from the same reservation I was and stuff, his dad and his uncles are all involved in the American Indian movement. So, we didn't really get involved ourselves in that either. Just kind of living, surviving, and surviving from a lot of generational trauma, not only from, my mother, but her mother, and so on and so forth. I decided that I was going to be one to end that. So I had to go through like a lot of working with inner trauma on my own to be able to say, I'm not going to do this anymore if this happens, and I'm not going to say this anymore if someone says this to me. And really reworked everything, almost like I'm a completely different person than how I used to be. But it's been like 8 years, almost 8 years. It'll be, yeah, it's been 8 years since I quit drinking alcohol. It was like someone just told me, you need to stop. It's like I can get these things, and sometimes I'll lay down and they'll lean. I can feel them lean over me, and I'm laying there, and they'll be like, "Hey," and I mean it's like wakes me up, and I'm just like, "What?" And it's like nobody's in the room with me. Yeah, they're trying to get my attention. Um, I don't consider myself to be, haunted. That's not it. It's like you're living on a higher vibrational, and your gifts and your abilities, it stems out. People like a
Hmm.
tree, it stems out. We're all one, we're all connected. Just like the trees are connected to each other. We're here to help each other. We're here to if one's sick, to make sure that we all get, take care of each other. That's what we're supposed to do. And it's turned out something totally different where, they have a whole different race of people coming in, and, you know, there was some big huge argument online about the land, and they're like, well, if you guys didn't own it, how did we steal it from you? It's like, it, you're still not getting it. This is ours. This is our land. We thought it was hilarious when they came in and tried to give us, coins and paper for something that everybody should have, where we can all live peacefully together. That's the whole point. And it's missed. It's gone. Everybody's out for themselves, and it just shouldn't be that way. It saddens me.
Yeah. It really, you just got, all these people that talk to me about that and everything. I have just learned, you know, that, you know, it's happened. We just have to let it go and move forward.
Hmm.
And this is what I have learned to do. I've let it go, move forward, and whatever, just forgive and move forward. I'm not saying forget, but forgive and just move forward because you don't want anything to hold you back.
That's right.
And so you know I I look at it as this is what basically my mission is to move forward
Hmm.
and be an example. I mean, so I know what you mean by saying they come and do this, but hey, let it go.
Hmm.
I mean, I tell a lot of people, they talk about boarding school. This, it's happened. Were you there? If
Mm-mm.
not, let it go. And tomorrow's another day. So this is what I really trying to share people because some of the things that I teach, and all this kind of stuff, I share my knowledge, and when I share it, some of the things that I tell them is that you can't have any hidden emotion because that's what's going to hold you back. If you have any hatred or negative thoughts or anything like that, especially if you're a healer. If you're a healer and you got yourself your vibration up and ready to do some healing work and everything, if you
Mhm.
have a negative emotion back of your head, well, it just drops your vibration down to where you may not be able to do what you came to do.
Right.
And that's one thing about, you know, when you raise your vibration, you know, one of the things is in the seven conscious level is relationships. You got to work with your relationships. Your ex-husbands, your ex-wives, your kids, your mother, your father, your community. Make peace with them because you cannot have any, again, hidden emotion with him. I don't care if he owes you $100 from 3 years ago. If he can't pay you back, let it go. Let it go. I mean, you survived 3 years without it. So what? What? I mean, yeah, it'd be great to get it back, but if they can't, let it go.
Hmm.
Your blessings are greater above
Right.
than anything. So I'm sorry. I just
No, you're
yeah.
exactly right. You cannot hold on to this, what is it? What does the people think? A slight, somebody said something to me many years ago, and I've always kind of talked about it, and I was like, I have to let it go, because I mean, I take something and I'll look at it and be like, okay, am I gonna remember this in like 5, 10 years? If I'm not, throw it away. You don't want like because everything just kind of hangs on you. You want to be a lighter vibration. You got to get rid of these weights that are holding you down. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I don't have any animosity towards people. I don't talk about people. What I mean? I will reference something that happened, but it's not something that is tied to me in any way. I know that there are a lot of, people always ask me, what's your spirit animal? And I'm Wolf Clan, but it's really weird. I dream about a lot of eagles and I see them. And I think it was like starting out, they started to like come to me. I think it was like about 2011. I was driving to work and I just kind of caught something out of the corner of my eye and I looked over and there was this eagle flying in the lane next to me and he was looking at me and I'm looking at him. I could have reached out the window and touched he was just soaring right next to me. I don't know, he must have been using the air from the car coming off, but he was looking at me. And I was looking at him. I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, and people are like, why didn't you take a picture? And I'm like, I'm driving. I don't even answer my phone while I'm driving. I'm not going to wreck the car, and myself for a picture of the eagle that's flying next to me. I keep it up here,
Yeah.
and it was meant for me. It wasn't meant for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
That's
you'd
right.
see the eagle flying next to you. But I mean, I would have these dreams and I would like see these shadows. They were just huge. And people would be running and screaming, running away. And I'd be standing there. And all of a sudden, this eagle would just drop right down. And that shadow was him. He was as big as a helicopter. And I was the only one that I could walk up to him, and I'm just like, I can't believe that this eagle is this big. And they always just kind of just came to me and like animals. I mean, we were going to look at this piece of land, and I was probably about six months pregnant. And I'm standing there, and the guy's like, I'll go get the keys for the gate so we can walk around and look at stuff. I'm like, okay. So I'm standing there with my partner and stuff, and and these two horses just kind of walk up, and they're kind of chunky little blonde horses. And I was like, oh my gosh, you guys have burrs in you. So I'm like pulling burrs off these horses, waiting for this guy to come out. And he comes out and he's just like, don't move. And I was like, what? What? And he was like, those are wild horses. He said, they came with the land when I bought it. He said, no one's been able to touch them. And I'm standing there pulling burrs off of them. And I'm like, they're not gonna hurt you. I mean, they came right up to me and they were like very inquisitive. They wanted to know who I was, why I was there, and it was just like, just a touch with animals and that you can tell them your intention. I mean, I don't know. The animals and I vibe. Yeah, it's sometimes I think it's like the humans I have issues with because I don't understand a lot of why they do the things they do, but animals are very pure, you know. And as a child, I knew I was supposed to be here to like heal the animals and heal the earth, but I think it was June, mid-June. It was a full moon, and this was 2021, and I was in Arizona. And of course, I'm just sitting there, and I was like, someone was telling me, go get some water, put it in a big, put it in a big, huge cup, put it in a big, huge container, jar, whatever. So I went and I got the water, and it was in this big glass jar, and I put it down, and they're like, and I'll start calling in everybody that you know and start to make this water glow. And I start concentrating on the water, and I was pulling in all these, ancestors or whatever helpers, and this water started to just glow. I could see it behind my eyelids when my eyes were closed. And they were telling me what to do, and they're like, no, you need to take this outside. And I had a medicine man with me, and I looked at him, I said, I gotta go outside. I said, can you grab some tobacco? And he knew exactly. He's like, sure. So he got the tobacco and stuff. And I had already staged the room and everything. So, we left and when on our way out, I was like, don't bring your phone. And he's like, okay. So he left his phone. I left my phone. I walked outside with this water and tobacco in my hand. And I walked down and I put it down on the ground and I started praying. And I was praying, Gitchimani Duikwe, the creator, calling for her because I needed her too. So, this was probably her idea to begin with. But when we walked outside, I looked up and I saw probably a UAP and its lights were on. But by the time we walked over to where I put the water down, the whole sky just lit up with all these ships. And I knew they were going to be there. I don't know how I knew. I just knew they were going to be there. And my Niji, my Medea, he was standing there and he's like, "Do you see? Do you see all of them?" He was just floored. And I said, "Yes, I knew they were going to be here. That's why we can't bring our phones out. They didn't want us to bring our phones out." And I took the water after I prayed and I poured it out into the ground. And then he took a handful of tobacco. I took a handful, I already had my handful. We were like standing there. He had his back to me and we're praying. And he's like facing the moon. It was a full moon. And I'm facing the mountains, and we put the tobacco down. And as I leaned down, it was like something flashed bright. And I was like, what was that? And he goes, did you see that? He's like, the moon brightened. And I was like, that's impossible. But, there was no cars or anything coming down the road. So what could it be? I mean, the moon got brighter. Okay. You know, and then you could see the ships slowly start to go away. Their lights would they would just dim them. It was like they were just turning them off and they were gone. But that was like probably the most, I don't know, earth shattering for me. I mean, everybody was like, you were so calm about it. And it was like, yeah, well, they were here. They wanted to see this. I was like, somebody told me to do it, and they were going to be there to witness it. They wanted to see it happen. Still don't know anything other than that, but just the things that and people are like, well, you do this. No, I don't do this. I hear someone that tells me to do this. I mean, I'm guided, protected. We're
Yeah.
all protected.
Yes. Yes, we are.
Yes. So, I mean, that's what some of the gifts I know was to heal the animals, heal the planet, and to heal others. And so, I mean, at the time I knew how to do it. I was a little kid, would lay my hands on someone. I could feel the heat. That's what my medicine man said. He's like, do you feel the heat? And I was like, I feel it like heat. If I'm running my hands over someone's body, if something, it'll stop me, and I'll be like, what's wrong here? And they're like, oh, I get, what do you call them? Crystals or something. They get stuck in one of those tubes. I'm not a doctor, never claimed to be a doctor. I mean, I've taken, medical um, classes and stuff because I wanted to be a massage therapist. But the one thing that I wanted her to teach me was how to be a hands-on healer. And she spent 5 seconds describing it. And I was very upset. I said, I can't believe I bought all these classes for this. And you just talked about it for a second. So that's when I went out and I started to look for someone. And I spoke to my medicine man. He said his name was Sunfish. He said, yeah, he said, you can come back. And he goes, I'll teach you. You need to be taught the right way. He said, because you're taking on everybody's energy and it's affecting you. And I was like, well, I don't know how else to release it, how to get rid of it. Cause I was like, I didn't know what I was doing because I'd never had anybody teach me the correct way to do it. So when I found an ascended master, they taught me everything. I mean, they were just floored by some of the stuff that I would like when I would call in for protection, they would be like, they could sense it. They'd be like, there would be a person that would almost step in front of them and be like, what are you doing? You know, there was also, I was like, I got kind of worried when I was getting my master's certificate there. I was like, I'm pulling in all these people, and all I could see were them standing shoulder to shoulder around us, protecting us. And then there was this bipedal, but it was like you couldn't see anything. It was just like this blue form of someone standing there. And I could see him with my eyes closed. I could see everybody with my eyes closed, and I didn't say nothing. And then afterwards, we got all done, and we're sitting on the floor, and Assistant Master looks at me, and she's like, "Are you going to tell me who all those people were, or who was that blue guy?" She could see them, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm not losing. I'm not, moving loco la cabeza. I'm not crazy. I am seeing these. I see the shadow beings when they walk around. I can see them with my eyes closed. And I don't understand how I see so well with my eyes shut. I have to have glasses. And even normally I can sense them, but I can't see them. It's not until I close my eyes then I do see them. Um, but I guess if you wanted to look at them as what they've always talked about, and they describe them in the Bible as angels. But they don't, they're, they're not angels, they tell me, because they're older than religion and they've been here since the very beginning. So, when they tell me, I can call on them, and I didn't even know that I could do this, but I called on them, and they come up and they show me things or tell me things. Um, it's I don't know what to say. It's just that it's low. It's like raising your vibration and getting away from all these really bad feelings, like, jealousy, your partner, you're jealous of someone talking to your partner, you think that your partner is always, running around, you're always trying to gain the evidence, I mean, you're living your life in a lower dimension like that. You had to, if you don't trust your partner, you shouldn't be with that person. To be able to work on all these things, you first have to like love yourself. And that was the one thing that I was like, I struggled with. I was like, to me, it just felt wrong. Like, people are like, you're a healer. Why don't you heal yourself? Oh, it just feels wrong to me, because it's like, I have these abilities. I shouldn't use them for you know, for me. That's for everybody else. That's how I feel about it. I mean, I do heal myself now because I understand the love that I have, for my energy and everybody else's energy, because we're all just the same. We just need to understand that. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. When we, I guess, work with energy, you know, we have to really learn about ourselves first.
Mhm.
And when I do the medicine or native alchemy, the first one is South, which is Mother Earth. In the seven paraconscious, it's I am, and that's the root chakra,
Mhm.
and which
Mhm.
is survival in seven conscious level. And then when I describe all that, and I talk about that, I make sure people come out and again let it go and learn about who I really am. I am is really asking yourself, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my elders, used to ask me, "Who are you? Are you an awoken one, or are you an infinite being?" And I said, "Well, I'm an infinite being." That's when they started teaching or sharing with me the knowledge they had about the cosmic world, the universal world, because we don't, you know, uh, I'm gonna say it, we don't practice spiritual life anymore like we used to.
Yeah, you're
People
right.
are into the religion, and religion, they punish you, they, they fearmonger you and everything to keep you in with that organization or that sect, whatever cult. But being in the spiritual world, I was asked when I was back home one time, and I was asked, "Are you religious?" And when I said no, man, jaws dropped. And
Same.
you what? You don't believe in this, Katrina, that? I said, no, I am a spiritual person. I'm an infinite being, which we have to look at it that way. We are infinite beings, you know. So when I said that, like I said, when jaws dropped, my elders used to tell me that you are an infinite being, because you are. And I just did a little segment on my YouTube channel, One Nation Tribal Alliance, on YouTube about space beings and why is it on the hieroglyphs in Zuni,
Mm-hmm.
and I pointed that out. I said, why? It's because, before communication like you and I are talking, you know, it was telepathic.
Yeah.
And it was, and for the people in the early people, I guess they didn't really know how to communicate, so they draw pictures of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Exactly.
how those
That,
hieroglyphs are. Those are the
right.
stories of what happened, what they witnessed. And I said, I remember seeing a hieroglyph with a dinosaur. And people said, we didn't live with a dinosaur. We didn't live with a dinosaur. Well, Lord and behold, guess what? They just found the oldest footprint in New Mexico
Mm-hmm. I read
with the
about
old
that.
in White Sands Missile Range,
Right.
when they found that old footprint with a human being footprint. Right beside it was a dinosaur footprint with it.
Mm-hmm.
And both scientists, they dated it and says, yes, they are at the same time. So that threw off the oldest footprint by like 35,000 years.
That's amazing. Yes. I remember reading something about that. I think you mentioned it too yesterday too. I didn't say anything, but that is like we talk about you know, what I had, we call ourselves Ojibwe, we call ourselves Anishinaabe. And I went to a medicine man and I said, what does that mean exactly? Can you translate that for me? And he got back to me like the next day or so and he said, translated, he's like, it means light lowered from the stars. So that's what we call ourselves, is light lowered from the stars. And that's exactly what we all are. You just have to, there was like, is there people that are indigenous to this planet? Yes. But there are also people that came here from different places. And
Well,
and they left evidence of it. And when you were talking about the hieroglyphics, people think that, that's the way they spoke. No, they left something so that everyone could interpret their stories. And that's why they're hieroglyphics, because it's a language everyone can understand. So, yeah, it's amazing. I see some of the old 1500 maps, and going in with a lot of, I can't remember which tribe. I used to have it all down. I have it down somewhere, but it was like talking about like we're in a firmament. I'm not saying I don't like to say flat Earth because I don't really fall under that, but is this true? We'll find out. Like I was
Well,
told, you'll get all the answers.
one of the things that I found out about, flat Earth is that, you know, if you look at the Hopi prophecy, it said that the medicine wheel, has four colors:
Hmm.
white, yellow, red, and black. And why are those four colors only four colors? Two reasons why that really stuck out. One is that those are the four skin colors of the world,
Hmm.
and we, as time went on, we developed a name called race. Well, he said the Hopi say that if you're of red people, you are red people, which is us natives. I don't care if you're Ojibwa, Zuni, Navajo, Apache, whatever. You under that red umbrella, you know,
Hmm.
even the black. If you're Afro American, Jamaican, whatever, you're black, you're black. You're not, and but, you know, even the white. Are you Swedish, English,
Norwegian.
British, and all this? It was not like that. You're white, you're white.
Right.
Yellow is the same way, you know, but you're not Tibetan, you're not the yellow is yellow.
Hmm.
So that's the way I look at things too. Also, you know, if you're a native, you're my brother. It's just like I like the way I used to work with Wilma Mancular. She was a chief of the Western Cherokee Nation from Oklahoma, and she used to say, "It doesn't matter if you have a drop of native blood in you. You're still my sister. You're still my brother." She accepted, you know, it doesn't matter how much native you got in, say I'm native, she'll accept you and say, "You're my brother, you're my sister." She always said that. So I took that to the heart. So if anybody says, "Well, I'm native," and I said, "You're my brother then, you're my sister then." You know,
Hmm.
I don't push them away. I don't say, "Well, prove it." No, I don't. Let me see your census card. I don't do that. And in Zuni we do have census cards.
Yeah, we
And
do too.
you know, and they look at mine and says, "What does it mean by 4-4?" I said, "Well, I'm a full tank."
Yeah, air
No,
full
no,
tank.
yeah, no. I said, "No, 4-4. No, I can't be 4-4. I just donated up on blood. No, mosquito just took. I just turned a
Right?
mosquito into a native. But you know, it that don't make that's not relevant to me. You know,
Right. It's not.
Well,
It's not. It's like it's the government's idea of quantum, to decide on if you get help from us or not. You have to be a quarter to be enrolled. I know they Red Lake did this a couple years ago, but they said anybody who is enrolled right now, anybody who's enrolled at this moment in time, you're all full blood. So my mother is considered a full blood now. And that opened up so many people to be able to come in and to be able to get help from the reservation. It's, I mean, I wish all of them would do that, but there's a lot of people that are against it. There's a lot of people that are for it. My family's like divided in on it, and I don't like to, you know, get into arguments with people. So, I just walk away from arguments because it just doesn't make sense to have that much anger over something. Um, so you mentioned yesterday about my Thunderbird or my Phoenix
yeah.
Thunderbird. They're cousins. They're really closely related. And I was sitting outside. It was this summer, sitting out on the patio, and it was like I could see something, but I could see it better if I closed my eyes. So I closed my eyes, and I was like all these lines, and it was like crystalline lines. And I was looking at it and it was like, well, what the heck is that? And then immediately after I said, what is that? The centerpiece popped out and it was a bird. It was like, it was the head was very different. And so it made me, think of the phoenix and the thunderbird. And underneath that, it was like a symbol, but the bird started to fly very slowly in front of me, like almost becoming like almost like a holograph, but my eyes closed, I could see it. And underneath the bird was an indigenous face. It was a profile. I could see the skin color. I recognized it immediately as Native American. And there was long black hair. And it was hard to tell if it was male or female, but it was just like this indigenous profile underneath this bird that had just materialized out of nowhere in front of me. So I was very grateful to have been shown that vision because, it helped me to understand that, that there's a big piece in this and it has something to do with us as natives. Okay, what is that piece? That's, I always ask these questions and I may not get answers right away, but I do get them.
Mm.
I
Wow.
was trying to reach out to somebody. He's been having these visions, these dreams and stuff, and I really want to talk to him so bad. And I can only find him on TikTok. And out of 500 comments, he's not gonna look at mine regardless. So just keep praying. I do have a friend of mine that is in touch with him, but I'd love to have a show. I wanted to do like almost like a panel of people talking about some of the things that they've seen, some of my visions, their visions, some of the things that I- I'm always interested in knowing, how gifted people are. Not saying you're not gifted or you're not gifted. And I'm just like, how, seeing that it's a beautiful thing, because they're in
That's,
tune with their abilities and they're in tune with themselves.
yeah.
And you feel that warmth from them. I feel it when I meet someone. And like when I met you, it was like instant. I was like instantly nervous. I remember I was like stuttering yesterday, and I'm just like, I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous. It's just that, I was so excited to meet you. It was just like, But anyway. So,
Well,
go ahead.
you talk about, you know, gifts and all that. Everybody has gifts.
Hmm.
We all have gifts. We just need to learn to raise our vibration
That's right.
because right now, if you look at the 3D world right now, the dark is losing and they are on a rampant because
Right.
they don't want to lose. Because, you know, when 2020 came, the balance of the divine feminine and masculine happened, you know, spiritual people started to rise. People are starting to awaken. People are starting to come out of their shells to say, hey, I'm awakened. And if you look at YouTube and all that, or your Facebook, it's flooded with people that have gifts, and my thing is that, I can resonate to those that are truly have gifts because, I can see it and I can feel it. I can feel their energy. I can connect, spiritual and everything. And just like when Rob called me and says, "Hey, you need to meet Eve Howard," and I said, "Okay, Eve Howard. All right, let me, But then I said, "Eve Howard," and I kept saying, and you connected with me, and I said, "Wow, I need to." So I looked up your podcasts, you know,
Hmm.
and when I saw your podcast, we went through a lot of things, and I said, "Wow, we both
Similarities.
at 3 years of age, we both had the same thing happen. We both all knew. I call him Mean Russell, but you call him Russell Means. We knew him, and I said, wow, we do have a little connection there somehow, and so that really surprised me, and I wanted to bring you to my channel because in my channel I had told them my One Nation Tribal Alliance people that I'm gonna start interviewing natives from different parts of the country to let them share what it's like to be on a reservation, and if not, just share their experiences,
Hmm.
yes, because like you say, our gifts may sound like you know crazy to people that are in the 3D world, but if you're in a higher dimension, you can connect with those people. They can connect with your what you're saying to where they agree with you. They can see it, and that's real good. And that's why I do my best to keep my vibration high every day. I mean, I wake up, and I say, "Wow, thank you, bed. It was a comfortable night. Thank you." But it's
I do the same.
time for me to leave you alone, and thank you, blankets. You kept me warm, and
Hmm.
attitude, gratitude, and so I get up and you know, I try to be quiet. I sit there in the living room because sometimes if I just do what I'm led to. Sometimes I meditate. Sometimes I pray. Sometimes I see what happened in 3D world. Turn on the news.
Hmm.
I play my game on my phone, work game, but it's just whatever, and then my highlight of the day is I drink 1 cup of coffee a day. I drink that cup of coffee, that's it, you know, and most of it's water all day long. Water is
Yes.
water is spirit. So, wow, wow, and you know, it's just every day is a beautiful day. You know,
Yeah. And at night, I go and get a cup of water for morning, and I whisper into my water what I want to have for the next day. And then when I wake up, I take it and I drink that water, and it goes through me. So I've been doing that, and it's working.
of
It's
course
working.
not.
Okay, I love it. But I mean, I had one. Okay, this is a really weird dream. It's not going to take that long. But it was 2012, and I was at my in-laws house, and I had a doctor's appointment, so I was staying there till the next morning because it would just been easier. I was traveling with a young child, and she wanted to spend time with her auntie anyway. So that night I was seeing these orbs. I'm seeing it come from one end of the room and going down into the bedroom where we were going to sleep, and I was like, I'm seeing like these orbs, and they're like, really? And I was like, without my eyes closed. And so I went to sleep that night, and I woke up, and I look down, and I see myself sleeping. I see my husband, see my child, and I just it was like I just went right through the roof, and the next thing you know, I'm over Mille Lacs Lake, which is in Minnesota, and I'm flying over this lake. And I look to my left, and there's like a line of eagles. And I look to my right, and there's another line of eagles, and we're all just flying in one straight line. And I look down, and Mille Lacs is very shallow, and I could see these golden eyed walleye, and they were flying under, or not, they weren't flying, but they were swimming right underneath us. And we were all headed east because I could see the sun coming up. And as soon as I got to the edge of the lake, I woke up and I was back in my body. But I think that's what it is. I think we all need to work together. We all need to go in the same direction. And, with the sunrise, it's a new day. And I think we can do this. I really do. Every time I think about things in the future and what that could mean, I see just unity. I see acceptance. And and there's not going to be everybody that's going to be like that, but that's okay. There's a balance to everything.
Hmm.
So, the people that we can enlighten and connect with, those are the ones that are going to be the ones that help to lead everybody in the same direction.
Yes. Wow, that's a good one.
Mhm.
Wow, same direction, all
Same
together.
direction, all together.
You
Different,
know?
one in water, one in air. So, as above, so below, whatever they say.
Yeah. Wow, that's great. That's a good point about it, and I know we can talk forever and ever and ever, but
Oh, yeah.
uh, you know, I'm gonna post this on my website. I mean, my Tribal Alliance YouTube channel, and you know, I will share the comments with you, and I'm gonna keep in touch with you quite a
Yes,
bit
please
because
do.
uh, you know, I'll be ready for your Rumble whenever you get ready. So, you know, but trying to think if I want to. Well, we'll just have to stop here, and then we'll just go ahead and if we want to continue, we can continue next time and put a second chapter to this or whatever, turn the page or whatever, because
Exactly.
you got some very good, you know, information and dreams and visions that that's unreal, so thank you for sharing. And
Mhm.
again, I will post this on my tribal alliance, and I'm sure they will appreciate it. So at this point, I will say goodbye, but don't get off because I want to talk to you afterward.
Okay. I won't.
I'm just going to turn the video off for my people. And once again, thank you for joining us and watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll put some information on how to get a hold of Eve and her Rumble channel on the bottom of the screen. So I love you, tribe, and y'all have a blessed day and happy winter solstice coming. It was cold.
Yes. It was very cold.
Bye bye.
Bye.